live. Look at that. Hello,
Hooray!
Marcy, joining us. Hello, Hal. How do you do? Welcome. Linda Tether, Diane Burley. It's so great to have all of you join me. And I think you've all
Hey.
appreciated this very special event today. Welcome, Patrick. It's lovely to see you. And notice that we're already bringing in New Zealand is in the house.
Oh,
Welcome,
wow.
Jane. Yeah, the Projectkin audience is all over the planet. We're going as far east so far this morning with Marcy Rudolph, who is in Nova Scotia, in the cold climes of the Eastern Canada. Welcome, Kristen. It's so good to have all of you joining us today. I know it's such a busy time of year. For many of us, it's either coming up on the second day of Hanukkah, St. Lucia Day for Swedish, I just learned from Jill Swenson. And of course, those who celebrate Christmas have Christmas gift doing coming up, and as you can see, my cats have already gotten in on the fun and are competing for who can take down the tree first. So I am so happy to have you join us, Tad. You are like our secret Santa, our secret back there, always writing under the name Mightier Acorns with some of the most remarkable posts. You were here well before me on Substack, writing these very both gripping and fun, but also very carefully researched tales that have taught me a great deal, including little specific lessons. Hey, look over here. Lessons for finding my ancestors. And I feel like I personally have grown quite a bit just reading your stuff. And welcome, Jennifer Jones, also known as the ringleader for the Speaker's Corner series. And we just had a fabulous session last week bringing together our a two-part episode, bringing together our two Atlantic and Pacific coordinations. So enough of that warm up, because I know some people are just getting their emails, so they're just chiming in. So, Tad, tell us about your story 250. The one that you've submitted to Substack to Project Kin's Stories 250 series. I think you actually probably have more than a few, but go
Uh,
ahead and tell us about this first one.
well, this first one is kind of a concept that I've been leery of leaning into for a while because there's so much that I don't know. I'm not an expert. I don't have a history degree. I read a lot of people who do, and it's very humbling to realize how much there is to know that I don't know. Um, and then when I look at what I've been able to learn about, in particular, my fifth great grandfather, James Callan, um, I have a lot of information and I can stitch it together into a theory, which, if readers of my posts uh, have probably noticed for a long time, that I emphasize this is all theoretical. This is not set in stone. I'm doing the best I can. But the only way to tell that story really and make it compelling and make it feel alive was to uh, add narrative, add perspectives and thoughts that I can't prove, basically project what I think they might have been like. And that was what led to this story for the Project 250, the lives of three American Revolutionary War veterans. Um, I'm kind of in a position where I haven't been able to find enough records to actually tie together with some proof that James is even the same person that I think he is. Uh, I have the references from the original Callan family history, the one that was published in 1911. And the guy that wrote it, George Callan, he was a great grandson of James, but obviously he never met James.
Right.
And George's, both of George's grandparents had died before he was born. So he didn't know them. All he got was what his father told him. And according to the rest of the family, his father, William, was illiterate, um, but a very stern, very well, not well educated, but a very smart uh, man, clearing the countryside in, uh, the Ohio River Valley, and wanting to impress the value of education on his children. And so I know that George was told these stories, and what made it into his book does seem to match up with the records that I found, but I can't prove it.
Hmm.
And there's little details that George gets wrong, so I have to question everything. He says that James had a brother, John, who never had children and lived with him. But there's only really one piece of evidence that I found that names a James and a John, and that's the record that puts them in the mounted Kentucky cavalry, which
Hmm.
that may be where you got the idea that I was living in Kentucky.
You mentioned Kentucky a few times. Come on, man.
I've mentioned it because I'm fascinated. There's so many people with the surname
Yeah.
that show up in parts of Kentucky, and I just haven't been able to
Yeah.
pull together records or make the connections that I need to make there. So um, it's interesting to me, and that's what led to putting this fictional version of how James ended up in the military, how he ended up in a Virginia unit, even though he lived in Pennsylvania, which is a whole fascinating thing that took
Yeah.
me a year or two to work out. Um, and I was really excited with the way it came out, especially being able to tie in my maternal side. Again, fifth great grandfather, Leopold Zindel, who was a Hessian soldier and a POW. And so it wasn't really until I composed this story and put it in words, put it in a timeline, and then realized that James and probably his relative Edward, who I'm assuming was either his brother or his cousin, James and Edward camped in the winter of 1778, less than 20 miles from where Leopold was being held prisoner. And he was making cannonballs for the army. So they were probably firing cannonballs that Leopold had made. And just, that they came so close. I'm glad they didn't meet in battle because then I might not be here. But
Yeah. No, there's so many elements to this, and frankly, so many of your stories. For starters, I so respect your both your care of scholarship to be honest about what you know and what you don't know from the documents that you find, but also the thoughtful creativity and skill of narration of the story itself to lure us in in a really good way. And finally, bringing these different pieces together to help us feel that drama at the time. The role of these Hessian soldiers has been a real very interesting component to me. We have another absolutely wonderful story. I'll include it in the notes about the teenage Hessian soldier
mm,
you may recognize as well, and what his experience was kind of just going along for the gig. And just kind of getting that experience of what this was like. In my own stories, discovered this family lore of these Quakers who, by part of their helping to heal the wounded at the Battle of Guilford Courthouse, it turns out that their cousins were all loyalists. Big time
all
hero
right.
loyalists. Who knew? I didn't know. One of them
It's
went
easy
on
to
to the,
forget.
yeah, because we hear one side of the story. And I think that's kind of the lesson, the big takeaway. I can't say that I knew what I was doing creating Stories 250. I can't say that that was the grand plan because you all have have brought me into the good side of tell the truth. And yet you've also the stories 250. I think we have close to or over 50 stories now collected into this combination, and many of them reflect many articles from the same writer. In my view, that's a good thing because all of you, particularly those of you with multiple stories to tell, you have relatives. I know you. You have relatives who care a lot about these stories too. And I think being able to read them as a compilation and read them to see them in context of time, to see how many of us had ancestors who were like next door neighbors practically in the same
Yep.
window of time. I haven't gone through to figure out who was in which, which battalion or whatever. But they must at this point, well, obviously we did. It's just, it's like saying all of us, every single one of us had ancestors there at the time. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
Right.
It's just what were they doing and where were they? And as we've seen, and I thought was really well described in the uh, Ken Burns' American Revolution
Mm.
series, it started as a civil war and became a world war. And I think, just having the visibility to that, and then the wars preceding and the wars following it. As I said, with my ancestor on the loyalist side, he went on to the Napoleonic Wars. Remember that? And
Mm.
it wasn't all about
Right.
Napoleon. There was somebody he was
No.
fighting. um, and it just brings that kind of history alive. And as you have continuously shown, gives us incredible depth of into today's history. Um,
Yeah. The parallels are amazing, and um, I mean there are some obvious parallels between certain periods. Like the current political environment, you will hear people compare it to 1930s Germany, which is uncomfortable. You definitely hear a lot of comparisons to our Civil War, which a lot of people never let go of. And you still see these ideas that were argued about at the time of each generation.
yeah.
That is still people are still making the same arguments, and people are still struggling to come to terms with the same principles. One of the books that I've been reading for several years because it's a lot to digest. It's actually this one by Pauline Meyer, The
Oh,
Ratification. It's a
oh,
fantastic book, and what she's done here is she collected contemporary newspaper accounts and records of the debates as they happened in each of the states that were ratifying the Constitution.
I did hear
And
about this.
it's amazing. You see people making these arguments about how the Constitution is an atheist argument that an atheist document that is going to take us away from God and destroy our character as a nation. And a lot of the same kinds of people who were making those arguments are here today, carrying on that tradition, but arguing the different point of view, arguing that the Constitution is a Christian document that's based in the Bible. And it's really weird to see how people have struggled to find, their place and their opinion about, our founding documents. And
Mhm.
it's unexpected where people will land. So,
Yeah.
and that's kind of part of one of the things that I keep struggling with when I'm doing my family history is trying to figure out um, where did James stand on some of these issues. I doubt he was an idealist about um, liberty and freedom. He was a Scots-Irish, I think Presbyterian, and the impression that I get from like putting these pieces together is that he was probably pretty irascible. He probably didn't. I I don't want to say he was unprincipled, but I don't know, he didn't leave anything behind to tell us what his values were and what he was
Hmm.
fighting for. And I feel like he probably was very practical. He came to the United States, we think from Ireland, where he wouldn't have had property, he wouldn't have had land. And he fought in a war for a Virginian regiment. Virginia was at odds with Pennsylvania. They were fighting over the same territory that's mostly now Westmoreland County. Um, and just seeing that he made that choice to fight for Virginia instead of for Pennsylvania, you see in my fictional account that he's very upset about this. And that's because I feel like he probably was. He
Yeah.
probably had issues with the way the Quaker government used the Scots Irish Presbyterians as a buffer between,
Themselves
their
and the
tidy
Anglicans.
Quaker farms, right? And they put them on that border with uh, where the fighting was between the French and the British with their Iroquois um, yeah,
Allies.
allies.
Yeah. Hmm.
And yeah, it just nothing is ever clear cut. I think one of my posts where I was kind of talking about how um, we hold these people up as heroes. We look at their history and we talk about it a certain way, and we have to constantly remind ourselves there were other people here. There was a stew of motivations and conflicts that were going on. It was never just um, liberty versus not liberty, monarchy versus democracy. Those are things that we use to tell the story after the fact.
Right.
And
Absolutely. Absolutely. As you go through that story, I had a feeling they were Scots-Irish. And
yep.
um I've been fascinated as part of Dear Myrtle has had a book club focused on Albion Seed, and you may well have read that book. It's like 900 pages also. Really good, combined with the Kindle edition with audio on an elliptical. Just saying, because you
That's a good
remember the
idea.
part. Yeah, you remember the parts that are interesting. It's just there's it's not like a novel,
No.
it's a lot of descriptive anthropological kinds of analysis. And I don't personally have a lot of relatives who were Scots Irish or in that backcountry area. My ancestors were mostly the so-called Quakers and then the Cavaliers. I do have one really interesting relative who came from England in 1730, I think, quite late, and then was briefly and then married in Virginia from Virginia Wealth, a daughter of Virginia Wealth, right? And then moves to the backcountry and then jumps in the war. Huh.
There's
Interesting.
a
So
story there.
what's going on? I don't know very much about it. This is hello out there, cousins. This is the Bradshaw family. Talk to me. um, and it's I did yeah. This is what it's all about. Pulling these strings together to, yeah, understand the context. The Bradshaw family, that's like that line then connects directly to my great grandmother. And I know I have an artifact. I have a hand stitched uh, uh, what's it called, sampler from my
Mm,
her grandmother. So it goes back just about the same period of time. That side, coincidentally, was, I believe, all Puritans. So
mm.
managed to cross over all those different layers. And it's often the women who are married off into something else. And I think that's where you really get the interest, some of those really interesting stories to pull those bits together.
And
So
of
what
course,
was
those are the
sad about
hardest
that?
ones to tease out. You don't
Yeah.
usually have documentation. You almost never have letters or correspondence. I know
Yeah.
most of my female ancestors were illiterate, living on a farm. Elizabeth Berlin is one. Longtime readers may recognize me, talking about my progress, learning more about her family. But she apparently spoke English as a second language, definitely spoke German, and uh, she apparently learned to read and write so that she could communicate with her sons, including George, when they went off to fight in the Civil War. But like, I don't have any surviving correspondence from her, and I do have a document about her guardianship that I need to go through. Uh, I managed to find an index record on ancestry talking about her guardianship records and her conservatorship, and apparently they decided that she was incapable of managing her own affairs. And so, right, the documents have terms in them that we don't use anymore. They describe her as an imbecile, which I don't think is accurate. But her sons did manage her affairs and handle her finances in the later part of her life. And so I need to go through that and see what's in the paperwork that I might learn.
Yeah. And if it was later in her life, it could have been some form of dementia or Alzheimer's or those kinds of things as well. That is, let's face it, a disease, not a person.
Right.
Um, yeah.
And we just don't know. They wouldn't have had
Yeah.
the vocabulary or diagnostic
We
tools. So
we still don't.
yeah, we still don't. But
Absolutely.
uh,
Absolutely. No, it's really, and I think as we go back in terms of making generalizations about people and their, types, uh, it is often said that the women are the social glue between families. They are the ones that are having those conversations, writing those letters. Who's writing your Christmas cards this year? Those kinds of things that are bringing the different parts of the family together that are brilliant for stories about who these people were and what their lives were like, which is at the end of the day what we're looking for. I've often done this, but since you showed your book, I get to show mine. My grandmother wrote this wonderful book in 1948 that I think all of us as cousins would agree that it's not great prose. And I hope my cousins all now know, because we've talked about this, we are not really related to Betsy Ross, which is and it's delightful because this is now the lie that lets me know that we're cousins because we all heard it somewhere. It was published in 1948, where everyone contributed to their productive lives. Um, you know, pillars of the society. Um, sure. Um, but what also makes it fun is, the cookie trail that leads you on.
mm,
And I think what's so compelling is how much it reminds us that what we're doing now is equally flawed. It is equally
right.
biased, but just maybe it'll form a useful cookie trail for our descendants, which takes me two things. One, I've been delighted to discover that in about 12 years ago, I scanned that book to a pretty poor quality PDF and with an abridgment to take out the our lives section, which includes a lot of my elder cousins, and published it to the Internet Archive. And today, I have found it be the source documentation for many other people, which
Oh
cracks me
wow.
up since I know it is flawed. But at least those are the ones who took the time to cite it. And I found the
Right.
citations on WikiTree.
Excellent.
Which is lovely, actually. And now that I finally got access to my cousins, my grandparents, I was locked out of by some, I think, well-meaning cousins. But it's a long story. But it's finding the careful documentation in WikiTree. And you have been a very active WikiTreeer, I gather. Certainly, you are scrupulously careful to cross-reference everything into WikiTree. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, early days for me with WikiTree, I think it grew out of a project that was started by a Ukrainian programmer in around 2006, 2008, and I may be confusing it with another project because after Wikipedia rolled out, there was an explosion of uh, instances of all kinds of different wiki platforms. And I remember tinkering with that one um, in the early days, and I wasn't very good with my wiki markup language, and they had some unique
Was
ways of
painful. Yeah.
making it work. Right.
Unique is
And
very
then,
polite.
y- yes, I try to be polite. Uh, when I came back to it, I was working on my Callan Family History revision project starting in 2015, and that kind of became one of the things that I uh, worked into my process. I do most of my research on Ancestry. I just went ahead and started paying for the top tier all access membership around 2015. And then cross referencing whatever I found in Ancestry with what could be found in Family Search. Because Family Search, of course, is free for everybody. And while they don't have quite as many databases as the Ancestry maximum level does, they do have things that Ancestry doesn't get because the resources are owned by the LDS Church and they keep them close hold for a lot of reasons. Um, and so I like having that resource. I'm not crazy about the way their tree functions, but I'm not gonna I'm not gonna attack them here because I do try to use it, and
Mhm.
as I learn things, it gets better. So
As
drop
best friends have the best suggestions. It's okay.
right. But working back and forth mainly between those two primary resources and then taking whatever I get, because ancestry trees are notoriously hard to share with people, especially if they don't have an account and don't even want to set up a free account, which I understand. Um, if they can't view what I'm working on in Ancestry, then if I can put it in WikiTree, then they have a resource. They can see what I've done, and it's taken me a lot of years to develop my skills there and get better at source citations. I've always been sold on the idea of source citations. I've just never been as good at forming them. Part of that was when I went back to try to get my bachelor's degree. Every class you take, the professor uses a different standard, and um, I was coming back after 20 plus years in the federal government writing reports that require completely different non-public
Yeah.
standards. So uh, my approach has always been I'm going to do the best I can.
Yeah.
People are always going to find details to nitpick with as long as they can find the source that I'm citing. I feel like I've done a good job. And I'll keep trying to improve. I've learned how to use
Yeah.
some of the templates, and they have an AI app on Wikitree, the Wikitree Sourcer app, which is improving. Um, and again, I'm improving as I work with it. But it makes it really handy to generate those links. So when I do share something from Ancestry, I usually have a link from Wikitree
Yeah.
going to that if it's a critical
Yeah.
piece of
Yeah.
evidence.
Well, kudos to you. You're here not only an example of how effective it is to just get started, and then keep improving because you will keep improving. I can see how skilled you are today. And that's a reminder to newbies like me to just get in there and do my best and let the pull of the story, pull of the fun, the joy of it pull me along. And what I'm trying to do here is to show others that joy for even those like me
Yeah.
that don't know. We all bring our own set of experience to the table, and the
Right.
kinds of things that we can do to help others to this. Because in my view, there are, like every field, so many incredible experts, and it takes diving in to really appreciate what their expertise is. But meanwhile, like sitting here playing with my paint set, I can make some progress and start to appreciate what's happening and what I'm doing. You know, thank you so much for taking the time today to come on back to Substack to join us with this. And you are a milestone for me, by the way. I'm not sure you knew that. You are a milestone for me because going forward, you will be the first of what I hope to be a series bringing in um, genealogists, storytellers, and family historians from everywhere, not just on Substack. Yes, you have to have a Substack account to do this, but I honestly think this is a way to create a traffic flow for people who are outside of Substack. Our genealogy community now here has grown and become so strong and vibrant that it can help and be enriched like a tide pool with the flows from outside of Substack. So I will be doing a number of other projects to try to keep that back and forth going on, and am very excited to do that. You'll hear more about things like Roots Tech. I have
All
an
right.
addition for Stories 250 coming up, and a bunch more coming in for 2026. It's time to start planning that. I'm not exactly going to do a retrospect because that's get boring, but it's been an amazing year.
Yeah.
And I'm truly thrilled by this organization, this community, and vibrancy is just the word that comes to mind. And I'm so pleased you were here before me. You have shown me the way. You've shown the strength and opportunity of that, dare I say, diversity, of having that range of perspectives and opinions and talents that we can all learn from each other. You were just saying that now in talking about, making the decision for your own reasons to focus first on ancestry, but also recognizing and appreciating the strengths to come from WikiTree, from Family Search, and I imagine your research efforts all over the world to pull those things together. And I applaud you for that. I'm running alongside like a little sister trying to figure out all these things. I've always been the little sister. It's not an age thing. It's an
I get
attitude.
that. Yeah.
It's an attitude. I never know enough. I'm always wrong. It's okay. You get used to
Oh,
it. It's like being
I get
mom.
used to being wrong. Yeah.
Exactly. So again, thank you so much. I'm going to do my best to
Well, thanks
include
for having me.
references to some of the things you've mentioned. Feel free to toss them secretly to me on the side so I don't look so bad when I produce the notes. This video will go out right away, or at least as soon as it's available, but the notes will follow along just as quickly as I can. Know that I'm running alongside being that little sister to make it happen. I think I'm going to milk
All
that.
right.
Thank you.
It's good to
Ta-ta
have
for
good
now.
branding. Thank you.
You take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.